Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Keep Moving. So happy that you're here with us today. Our speaker today is Sara Zoeller. She's a physical therapist who's joined our team here at Boston University, and so thrilled to have her today with her presentation on stair mobility. So we'd love to have Sara join the broadcast.
Hi,
Hi, Sara.
Teresa.
It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. I'm a long-time watcher and listener, first-time presenter. I'm happy to be here.
We're so excited for today.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting me here. I'm excited to talk to everyone. Today, our topic is all around stair mobility. So we're going to talk a little bit about some tips and some challenges that people with Parkinson's might face related to the stairs, and some tips that might be applicable to anyone really on stairs to help keep you safe. So this is just a little background. I work at the Center for Neurorehabilitation with Teresa here at Boston University Sargent College. And if you're interested in following up with us, here's our contact information. So to start, stairs can be a challenge in Parkinson's. For some people with Parkinson's, stairs are not too hard. People find that the visual cue gives them a place to step, and sometimes people find in that way stairs can be helpful. But we know that certain symptoms of Parkinson's can lead to challenges on stairs. And so bradykinesia, small or slow movement, is one. And one thing we see with that is toe catching or heel catching going down the stairs, toe catching going up the stairs. If there's a tendency to lean backwards, in PT sometimes we call that a posterior bias, or even to lose balance backwards, that can create a challenge. Something called autonomic dysfunction, which we think of as low blood pressure, low heart rate, or difficulty with the blood pressure or heart rate adjusting to activity, can cause a challenge. And then low fitness level, either related to some symptoms of Parkinson's or unrelated after a surgery or a flu or something like that. So we know stairs are an important part of many people's homes and also in accessing family members and friends' homes and communities. And our hope here is to give some tips for these types of challenges to help keep you safe. The big caveat here is that everyone is unique and faces a unique sort of set of challenges both in the environment and for themselves. So this is always a point which we say it's best to contact your own occupational or physical therapist with individual questions, and we'll give some general tips, but they may not work for everyone. So we want you to do something that's personalized and best for you. So to start, we'll address that toe catching or heel catching, which again can be the result of just that underestimation, smaller steps than you think you're taking. So the first tip for this is to exaggerate the steps. Try to march, try to lift high, step higher than you think you need to. One thing that can help with that is picking a target, like trying to tap the front of the step in front of you, or if you're going down, trying to hit the heel on a certain part of the step. Slowing down, not rushing, can also help with this, really focusing, taking away the reliance on that more automatic basal ganglia system, and bringing a little focus to the task can help reduce this. Along with the focus, reducing multitasking we know can help. I'm going to show here a little video of just taking one step at a time. This is a way to slow down a little bit. And also, if one foot is consistently a problem, you can lead with the opposite foot to reduce that. If any toe or heel catching is present and there seems to be a visual problem, if this is a new problem or you're really having trouble seeing without any glasses involvement, which we'll get to, might be something to bring up with your doctor. But if you're using bifocals, trying to adjust the bifocals or take them off can help. If you're at the edge of that lens in the bifocal, that can make the stairs blurry. And then depending on the stairs themselves, sometimes it's helpful to use a tape to highlight the front of the next step to make it more clear where the next step begins. Moving on, we'll talk a little bit about the tendency to lean backwards. And here you can see our first tip is to really try to reach forward on the rail. The tendency, if you're worried about losing your balance backwards, is sometimes to reach backwards to support that, but instead that tends to bias you backwards. So reaching forwards gives us a little bit of a tilt forward. Um, the next thing for this is to get the whole foot on the step, and that prevents the heel from coming back, which would also tend to tip someone backwards a little bit. This is an example of if you were to stop, or even something like if you're going up an escalator, having one foot up and one foot down gives more of that forward and backward stability here. So that can be helpful. And then keeping the feet wide in this type of position. Finally, if you're going up or down the stairs with someone there for support, usually, and we'll get to this later in the presentation, what we recommend is if you're going down, the person supporting is in front, but if your tendency is to lean backwards, it may be helpful to have a caregiver or an assistant behind you in case that backward lean comes on. And then going up the stairs, you would be behind, which would be more typical. So autonomic dysfunction, I mentioned briefly, is something that can occur in Parkinson's, and it affects the blood pressure and the heart rate's ability to adjust, or they may be low at baseline. So these tips that we're going to give are if you're already diagnosed with autonomic dysfunction. Orthostatic hypotension is one type of autonomic dysfunction that many people may be familiar with, but the big red box on the side is very important, which is that if you're having any new symptoms of dizziness, lightheadedness, definitely any chest pain, shoulder pain, jaw pain, unusual shortness of breath, abnormal heartbeat, you may feel like your heart's racing or fluttering, those are all reasons to talk to your doctor because they may not be related to the Parkinson's. So we'd want you to get that checked out before sort of attempting to use any strategy, but this is more if you've already been diagnosed, you have some management strategies already, maybe you're working with a physical therapist. Here are some things that can help with the stairs. So an example I think of for this is someone, if you're sitting in your recliner at night reading a book and then you're ready to go upstairs for bed, you jump out of the recliner and go right up the stairs. That's a big change. It's a big change in position that your heart rate and blood pressure have to accommodate. And then it's also a change in activity level. So then you're kind of putting more demand on the system and it's having trouble catching up. So slow position changes is something we usually recommend in this case anyways, but a slow position change and almost a little bit of a warm up for your system, a little walk before going up the stairs, before increasing the demand. As you're on the stairs, going slowly, not rushing, taking time as you go. And then using some of the other strategies for low blood pressure or orthostatic hypotension, and that can be individualized, but we give some examples here of some typical strategies like if needed, using an abdominal binder, compression stockings, making sure you're well hydrated, monitoring salt intake. And then as kind of a final recommendation for this, if there's any sense of feeling lightheaded, feeling like you're going to pass out on the stairs, if it's possible to safely sit, that may be the best option to keep you safe and prevent passing out. Finally, moving into strategies for like low fitness level, which could occur because of mobility difficulties with Parkinson's or could occur for other reasons, something like after a surgery. This is really important just to take your time, rest, plan to rest after a certain number of steps, or if there's a split staircase, maybe resting on the landing, catching your breath there. Some people, if they know ahead of time, will put a chair on a landing, that type of thing. Going one step at a time can just help with pacing, so going a little slower. Using breathing strategies, making sure you're breathing as you go through the stairs and then on those resting points. And then big picture pacing is looking at if you know you're going to have something, say you're going to a Thanksgiving dinner at a family member's house and you don't usually do stairs, you might plan to have a nice relaxing morning before you go, trying to kind of pace out the rest of the day and save your energy for some of the mobility you'll need at the time you're there. So we're going to shift a little bit here and talk about how to give some extra support on the stairs. And rails I think of as one of these things that it's universal accessibility. So that's what these pictures here are showing, is that rails can be helpful for someone with Parkinson's, but they can also be helpful for someone with a baby or fancy shoes or maybe another type of injury. So it's never a bad time to think about in your house where rails might go if they're not there already, and how that might support a variety of people in your life to be able to access things. If you have rails already, if you're going to a stairway with rails, using them, right? Nothing wrong with using the rail. Give a little extra support, a little extra security. Um, Not just for leaning backwards, we talked a little bit about that, but reaching forwards on the rail, going up and going down. Sometimes people aren't really paying attention to where their arm is and it just kind of drifts backwards, isn't as providing as much of support. So reaching forward as you go. If you have a weaker side, you're going to want to use the railing on the opposite side to the weaker side to give that side the best support. And then if you have a stairway with wide railings, kind of like the one I'm at here, instead of really reaching wide and stretching out to try to use both, if you think you need both, turning to face one rail, either sideways or kind of diagonally, and then using both hands on the one railing to go up. Canes can be helpful if they're something you use regularly. You can use it on the stairs as well. This is a video just to demonstrate. If you're using a cane, you're going to lead with the cane going up and lead with the cane going down. You can still use the railing if it's there. Some people will prefer to carry the cane in one arm or have someone carry the cane and then just use the railing. Or they might prefer to have an upstairs cane and a downstairs cane. That can be an easy fix that just gets the cane out of the way or lets you carry up a book instead, something like that. And this is just to show, this is a walking stick similar to a cane, but if you're comfortable going up one step at a time, you can use it in that way as well, still leading with that device. This is a laser cane. Some people find this really effective and helpful for walking, and it can be to give a cue of where to step. It can be a little bit of a challenge on the stairs themselves. So instead of using the cane, you can see here where the laser kind of gets cut in the middle. It's going 2 steps down instead of 1 step. It's helpful to turn off the laser and just use the pattern of the steps itself to guide you on the stairs. So this is for walkers. Walkers are not meant to be used on the stairs themselves, but there may be times where you need to bring a walker with you. This is really an individualized decision. I want to stress that both for if you're a person with Parkinson's or if you're a caregiver of someone with Parkinson's, if you feel safe carrying the walker up or down the stairs. But here's a strategy, is just to fold it as tight as it goes, tuck it in nice and close to your body, make sure it's high enough that it's going to clear the stairs and it's not going to catch as you go. And then just nice and easy, one step at a time, use the rail if it's there, if you're going to carry it. This is another even better example than the cane of when it might be nice to have an upstairs and a downstairs device if this is something you're going to be doing more often. And then moving on, so we want to make it clear that not everyone will need or would benefit from a lift or a ramp, but just to share that these are options for navigating the stairs. Some of the benefits are really makes it sort of ultimately safe and there's no risk of tripping or falling using the lift. Or if you were to use a ramp, you'd be able to get into the house, either drive a wheelchair or a walker up the ramp. You can also transport things up and downstairs, a walker, or in this case, a very cute puppy. So it's nice in that way, and again, can kind of promote independence. Considerations, it's just an example of a ramp here we have at BU. They can be costly, so that's a consideration, and it very much depends on the environment and the setup, what the cost is. There are some spaces that will not accommodate either a lift or a ramp. There's certain requirements for accessibility of how steep the ramp can be, or for the lift, it needs to have a certain width for the stairway. So those are considerations. But we do recommend, if you're interested in one of these things, working with a therapist, a PT or an OT, as well as looking at local resources for a company that would be able to give a consult on that. All right, finally, here we have some tips for caregivers assisting going up and down stairs. So before I show any videos here, I just want to say the most important thing is communication. So before, making sure everyone's on the same page, everyone's ready. During, if anyone's uncomfortable, stopping, kind of taking a breather. And then afterwards to say, like, is there anything we could do better next time? So really making sure everyone's ready and steady before you go. If possible, the caregiver should hold the railing. Staying close, but not getting in the way of where the person's stepping as they go down. And then as the person's stepping, trying to be in that sort of staggered position that we showed for someone with backwards leaning, where one foot's on one step, one foot's on the other, so that if you do have to give some support, you're not 2 feet on one step, then leaning back. One thing I hear a lot in the clinic if we practice stairs is people will say, "You're not going to catch me. I weigh a lot more than you." But what's really important is the early feedback. So if you give an early contact cue, if you give a little early adjustment, just a light touch even, it's not a push. You don't want to push someone back in the opposite direction. But if you notice someone leaning or going a certain way, a little contact can go a long way. I think we have an example of that here. So it's just a gentle, it's not a full catch, but it's just enough to kind of adjust, give some feedback. Yep, you're leaning back a little bit and keep going. Oop, I think we had one more maybe. Oh, this was just an example of if you're in a place where you don't have a railing or the support that you need, this is one way that a caregiver could help going down. And so Teresa's not using the other rail. She could, if this were the case, she could use a rail in a hand or she could use a cane in a hand if she needed it. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. We want you to know Teresa and I and our colleague Tim are here to help if you have questions. So this is our APDA exercise helpline. It's both an email and a phone number. You can call us or send us questions and we'd be happy to hear and happy to respond. So if you'd like to connect with us, this is a great way to reach us here. And I think with that, Teresa's going to come back on and we might answer some questions.
Sarah, thank you so much. What a great presentation. I love the examples that you showed on the videos. That was wonderful.
Well, and thank
Um,
you for helping me film, Teresa.
um, we have a couple of questions that have come to us earlier, and we're certainly here to take your questions. So anyone that has a question they'd love to address, please type it in the chat, and we can get to it. But Sarah, this one I'm curious what you would say. A person wrote into us with the information from the presentation. I feel like I could use more practice with the stairs. What do you suggest?
So I know we're a little bit biased here, but I think you can never go wrong with finding a physical therapist that you trust and working with that therapist, working in therapy sessions and then having strategies that you can carry over to home. If there is someone in your home, maybe having them come in and work for a session with you. But I think really the best option, and I know I mentioned this at the beginning, is to make sure you have a strategy that's individualized to you and then they can work through with you the best method to practice.
Yes, yeah, it's so personalized, as you said, um, and that also kind of gets us at the next question, which person was writing. My stairs have a curvature in them. What would be the best way to handle that?
So I think the biggest thing is trying to be on the outside of the curb. You want to give yourself as much foot space as you can. If there's a curb or a twirling staircase, being on that inside where there's not a lot of space can be a little more risky. And again, those don't have as natural resting points, but if you find yourself tired or a little short of breath, just picking for yourself, maybe before I get to the curb itself, I'll take a little rest, or I'm going to count the first 10 steps, take a rest, and then go up the rest of the way.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, we have someone that wrote in of her own strategy that works for her. This is a comment Judy wrote saying that she finds that counting as she goes up or downstairs really helps her with the rhythm and keeping her balance on the stairs. So again, I think that's a great tip. But again, recognizing that it has to be the right tip for the person.
Yeah, that's an excellent strategy. And thank you for sharing that so much because that's one of those things that we can kind of translate too between sometimes walking and stairs, just like the visual cues or the exaggerating the steps. The counting is one nice way to cue yourself to do that and kind of keep on track. So thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate that.
Sarah, I'm curious what you would think on this one too. Kind of a question about a curb step, single step, obviously, but sometimes not a lot of rail-based supports. I wonder what you would say on that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that because it depends. Are you using a device? It's navigating the device, but still, it would be if you're using a device, it would be the device would lead, right? So the walker would lead, or the cane would lead you up. Um, Making sure, I think sometimes what I see is that with that posterior bias, like people step up and then start to lose their balance. This is in an upward direction, but even in backward, and sorry, going down the curb step, same thing. So almost like step up and keep going if you can, if it's safe to do so, if you're not stepping into traffic, but step up or step down and then take a few steps away from it rather than I think there's like sometimes people are a little nervous or get so excited that you pass the curb itself, and then there's a little bit of um, a loss of balance there. So I think that strategy, also the exaggerating the step. The curbs are tricky because they're nothing standard, at least where we are here in Boston, nothing standard. So sometimes it can be hard to judge, and sometimes the sidewalk even dips down a little bit right before the curb. So exaggerated steps, and then keep the steps going. If you use a device, lead with the device.
Um, yeah, that's absolutely. A question from Catherine in our audience came up. She writes, are there any strengthening our balance exercises off the stairs that might help improve ability with going upstairs, going up and down?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So the main muscle groups that kind of power you up the stairs are your quads and your glutes, the muscles in your butt. So things that target those muscles would be something like one of our PT favorites, a sit to stand or a squat. Those can help if it's safe to do so. Something like a lunge could also target those muscles. There's machines at the gym like a leg press or leg extension. Those type of things would target that strengthening as well. But I know we're big fans of the sit to stands here.
And I know in the clinic and some other clinics, sometimes actually practicing step up with one of our training steps, sometimes it can be helpful too. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, and I think that's just an individualized decision if that feels safe, if that feels good for you.
Yeah. So another question about feeling pain with going up the stairs and just kind of question about what would you suggest to handle it? How kind of what would you say?
I know, so tricky. And this is another one of those things. I know I don't want to default to this all the time, but individualized approach, hopefully see a doctor or physical therapist to try to address the pain. It doesn't have to be something you live with. And we want it to make sure that if there's an underlying cause or if there's anything correctable, we can kind of work through that so it's not painful long term. In the short term, say you have like a sprain or something that kind of gets tweaked. I have those days sometimes after hilly runs. Then you can use that one step at a time, lead with the leg that's not hurting as much. Using the railing, using some extra support can also help. Don't be shy about using a little extra support on the railing. But I would say try not to push through too much. Try to seek some help and some guidance to get back on track if you can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any other suggestions for that, Teresa? You're
Yeah, I
welcome
think
to chime in anytime.
yeah, I feel like I would agree with what you're saying there as well. I think, yeah, an individual physical therapy assessment, I think would really be in everyone's interest. And I know we've mentioned this on many of the broadcasts that the exercise helpline information that we show, among the things that we're trying to be able to do for people really across our audiences, if they're not sure what physical therapists near them might be appropriate, that's something that maybe we can help with is to connect you with a physical therapist that might be understanding of Parkinson in your area. Yeah. Um, Sarah, I think we have maybe we have time for maybe one last question. This question was kind of broad, but relative to lighting around the stairs. So stairs that
Ooh.
may be dark, what would you suggest? I know some of these answers may also be, again, needing to be personalized, but just kind of wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think lighting is really important and using the lighting. It's kind of like the railing. It can be there, but if you're not using it, if you're not holding it, it's not helping. Same thing with the lighting. You have lighting above your stairs, but if you don't turn it on to go upstairs at night, it's not helping you. So good lighting is very important to be able to see the difference between the steps, to judge the steps. So I can't really give any tips on like specific lighting schemes, but I think that's an important point that you want your stairs to be well lit. You want to be using the lights whenever you can. I guess for outdoor stairs, you could, if you're going somewhere you don't know if it's well lit, you could bring a light or use everyone's phone pretty much has a little flashlight now, sort of providing a little extra light if it's tough to see wouldn't hurt.
Yeah. Sarah, we did have one question kind of coming in right before we close, but I think it's a good one. I think you alluded to this a little bit when you were showing how to carry the walker up the stairs, but this is a question from Irina, and she writes, any suggestions for the safest way to carry things up or downstairs, say laundry, for example?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tricky one. Uh, it's just so personalized, and it depends on like how big it is, how heavy it is, that kind of thing. Our general tips would be keep it close to your body, right? Close to your center of mass, kind of around your belly button. The closer you can get it, the less work it's going to be. Making sure it's going to clear. So something like a laundry basket, making sure you're lifting it high enough. And again, you might have to exaggerate that a little bit, lift it a little higher rather than a little lower where it's going to catch. I know a lot of people find bags helpful, so sometimes people keep a bag at the bottom of the stairs, a bag at the top. So something like if you're carrying, a book and a set of reading glasses, you put it in the bag, or even like for laundry, having a shoulder bag rather than having to navigate with the laundry basket itself. So a good bag here or there can be helpful for carrying. But I'm happy to hear if you have other ideas, Teresa.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think some of the solutions I hear people in the clinic, kind of how they're dealing with it, almost always involve some version of the bag is strapped to them, backpack, something so that their hands are free, and that's not one more thing to deal with on the stairs. Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation, and just beautiful pictures and slides. And I feel like everyone just learned so much, and we could see it from some of the questions that came up that people are very engaged. So
Well, I
we
just want to thank everyone for joining and thank you for hosting, Teresa. It was nice to be here.
Just fantastic. And again, we want to thank everyone who is here in the chat today. We look forward to seeing you on these Let's Keep Moving webinars. We have the next one coming up in October. We'll be talking about assistive devices. But as always, we appreciate your participation and your joining us today. Thank you so much to everyone, and especially thank you to Sarah.
Hi, I'm Leslie Chambers, President and CEO of the American Parkinson Disease Association. Thank you so much for joining us today on our program. Every day, APDA is committed to providing helpful programs just like this one, as well as a wide variety of support groups, exercise classes, and educational programs to support the Parkinson's disease community. Whether online or in person, APDA is here for you every step of the way. You can find all of our upcoming virtual events on our website at apdaparkinson.org/events. We keep you posted on our social media channels as well, so make sure you follow us there. You can also connect to local resources and events through our nationwide network of chapters and information and referral centers. Remember, we're just a click or a phone call away. If you've enjoyed today's broadcast, I hope you will consider making a donation to help keep programs like this possible. Every gift, large or small, helps APDA support people living with PD through thoughtful programming, reliable resources, groundbreaking research, and more. Please visit apdaparkinson.org/donate today to support our critical work for those with Parkinson's. We are so grateful for your generosity. Thank you.